everyone, and welcome back to the channel, Say What's Real TV. Here to do the review for Kingdom Business, Season 2, Episode 1, Stay. If you have not seen Season 1, go back, binge watch all 8 episodes now streaming on betplus. Come back so we can get into Season 2. The show is finally back. Season 1 premiered May of 2022. We are just now getting Season 2, November 2023. But nevertheless, we're back. Let's get into it. So in the finale of Season 1, we were left with a cliffhanger with the bishop in front of the congregation, basically confessing to his involvement with Danny, who he says he felt guilty about her death because even though he didn't pull the trigger, he felt like he did. And it got to him so bad he actually took a gun into the church, and we were faded to black and heard a single gunshot. So we were led to believe that he took his own life. So here we are coming into Season 2 with the opening scene being Denita at a grave site, standing over a casket that's being lowered in the ground as she stands there holding a single rose. So as we're seeing her do that, we're also getting a chaotic scene playing simultaneously with the events that's taking place with her. And there's an ambulance rushing to the hospital, the emergency room crew, they're running out trying to get this person out that's on the stretcher. And back to Denita, she looks and it's her name on the tombstone. So we realize then that maybe this is her life flashing before her. And it's her on the stretcher that's shot and not Bishop Calvin. So what happened? Who shot Denita? How did she get shot? That's the question. So they rush her in there, and we get in there, and CJ is in there frantic, as she should be. That's her mama. She's in there basically blaming herself for what happened to Denita. Calvin is also there, and as he attempts to try to comfort her, she basically pushes him away and tells him that she knows that he is also suffering, but she don't have it to do. She has no pity to spare him. So he backs off of her, and here comes Essence and Taj. He's trying to comfort his sister and asking her, like, how's mom? Where's mom? What's going on? Like, what happened? CJ, she's still hysterical, and she tells him that it's all her fault. He's trying to tell her, no, it's not. You guys were in church. And she was like, we all were in church. And she begins to explain what took place. So she told Taj how their dad got in front of the church and confessed about having a relationship with Danny and talked about her death and how guilty he felt about it. And that's when he pulled the gun out and attempted to take his own life. And she got up, their mom got up. When she went to pull his arm back, the gun went off and the stray bullet hit Denita. So Taj, he became hotter than fish grease and questioned Calvin for even taking a gun in the church in the first place. Calvin over there shaking like a leaf talking about, you should have let me die. Taj went and jacked him up and was like, what is wrong with you? What is your problem? Like, is your life really that bad? And let him know, look, if my mama don't make it, you can forget you got a son. And I'm like, quiet as it's kept, you probably not his son anyway. So CJ's husband, Malcolm, he comes out to try to defuse the situation. And for some reason, I did not remember Malcolm working in the medical field. I really didn't remember that. But anyway, so CJ asked him, is her mom going to be okay? And he basically told her he couldn't answer that. Nobody can answer that at the moment. He just reassured her that she's in good hands. They're going to stabilize her, but they just need to make sure that they understand what her injuries are before, rushing into whatever. So it'll be a while before she can be seen. So with that, Malcolm told them that he had arranged for them to have a private waiting room so they can be more comfortable and they wouldn't have to deal with the press. So everyone leaves out of this little waiting area, and Calvin is getting ready to walk off. And here comes the chief of police, Ray, telling him, Calvin, we need to talk. So they walk outside, and Ray basically tells him, like, why did you get in the church running off at your mouth babbling about everything? Because everything was under control, everything was handled, and your secret was safe. Nobody had to know. And Calvin was like, well, God knew. And Ray was like, well, what exactly is it that God knew? So Calvin explains to him that he told only one person that Danny was blackmailing him, and that person was Sasha, which he thinks went and told Bishop Jeremiah, which is Denita's dad. And he figures that Jeremiah and Chief Ray have been in cahoots handling, little undercover business for years. But Ray says he hasn't talked to the bishop in years. And it's a whole big difference between helping somebody with a parking ticket and killing somebody. So Ray lets him know that his detectives are probably going to come around asking questions and probably try to get him to do a 48-hour psych eval because he did try to take his own life. Normally they will Baker Act you quick for that. So Calvin, he didn't have any objections to any of that, but Ray had to let him know he is not the enemy, and he advised him to keep his theories to himself and try to say as little as possible. Basically, keep your mouth closed from here on out, okay? Calvin said he had to get back to his family and asked them, did he have any more advice for him? Chief Ray was like, yeah. Next time you try to take your own life, make sure you don't F it up. I said, oh my God. So Taj, he gets a phone call from Caesar. After he heard about the love of his life being shot, he's calling frantic, wanting to know how she's doing. Is she okay? But Taj tells them they don't have any information. They are not telling them anything, but it's not looking too good at the moment. And Caesar basically lets him know, look, I'm here for you if you need anything. And Taj basically tells him he needs his prayers. We then see Detective Parker, who has been working on the whole Danny investigation. She's heading towards the hospital to go talk to the Jordans when she runs into Chief Ray. And she asked him, has he spoken to the Jordans? And he was like, nothing official. He's known the family for years, so he basically was here in support of the family and praying with Calvin. And then he suggested to her, in what I feel like was a little threatening type manner, that, she should wait before she, questions them about anything. And then he basically walk off. And she looking like, something up with that. And I was like, yeah, girl, something up with that. Something about that Chief Ray is, I don't know. He is no good. So Malcolm comes down and he basically gives a rundown on what's going on with Denita and says she's out of surgery. And, they're working on repairing, what's been damaged. And they've moved her to OR. So Calvin, he's sitting in the back talking about, well, what about the bullet? And everybody turned and gave him the coldest evil eye that they had. I was like, ooh, child. So Malcolm told them that that was a question for the surgeon and that this was going to take a while. So the best thing that all of them could do is just keep praying. Sneaky Taj, he gets a text message from Rebel saying, can I do anything? So, of course, Essence all breathing down his neck. He's like, look, I'm going to go to the cafeteria. So he played it off talking about, oh, can I get anybody anything? CJ said she was good. She was headed to go call her grandparents. And Essence said, bring her back some fresh fruit if they have it. And when he walks off, they pan towards Calvin and he's sitting there looking so pitiful and sad. It's like you want to feel sorry for him, but it's like, dang, Calvin. And Essence is looking at him like she's feeling sorry for him, but she doesn't know what to say or do, so she just goes sit in her own little spot. And the crazy part about it is Denita and Taj both have feelings for other people. So we see Rebel, and of course she gets a phone call from Sneaky Taj returning her text message. And so she tells him that she just talked to C's and he told her what happened. And she's asking about the family, the mom, how she's doing, asking about Calvin, how he's doing, and want to know, did he really try to take his own life? And Taj was like, yeah, he's holding a lot of guilt about Danny. So Rebel was like, well, I probably should let you go because I don't think she really wanted to get into that part about it. So she said, look, I just was checking on you, trying to see if there's anything I could do for you. And he said, yeah, just pray. Like, I know you really don't get along with my mom. There's no love lost between the two of you. And he says to her, if you can't do it for her, then maybe you can do it for me. So Taj tells her thanks for reaching out and they hang up. So she thinks about it and she looks at Danny's picture on her nightstand and she then begins to pray. So we see Denita in the bed. She's hooked up to all the monitors and have all the tubes all on her. We hear the surgeon talking to the family and basically giving them a little bit of good news, telling them that the damage that the bullet caused to her stomach and intestines have all been repaired. So of course Calvin asks again, what about the bullet? So the doctor, she tells them that they're not going to mess with the bullet right now because it's not life-threatening and it'll be a very delicate procedure. So she tells them that they want Denita to be kind of fully recovered before they try to put her through another surgery. So Taj asks, where is the bullet located? And she says, in the spinal column. So that's a possibility that Denita may be paralyzed. So they're all looking, nervous and scared about that. And the doctor tells them that they're more worried about her head injury right now, and they just need her to regain consciousness. So we go over there to the studio with Caesar, and he's in there with Jewel, and she's interning with him, trying to learn how to be a producer. And here comes Rebel, and her and Caesar do that back and forth cat fight that they always do that I really get tired of. And what is this wig that they have on Rebel here that look like it's all poofy and puffed up? Like, I don't like it. So they're bickering back and forth about him trying to get her baptized without asking, her not fulfilling the contract, and then she doesn't think she's good enough, and in walks Tasha Cobbs, the gospel singer. So they're getting ready to do a session, and Rebel tries to run out, and Caesar tells her, no, you're not going anywhere because you're a part of this. So we go back over there to the hospital, and we see Essence putting all kind of crystals all around Denita, talking about their healing crystals, and she claims she got one of them from Meghan Markle, and all of them looking at her like, girl, whatever. So Malcolm, he comes and gives some information about Denita, and we learn that she is in a coma. So we go back over there to the studio, and Rebel, she's apologizing to Tasha that Caesar had to call her to bring her into their mess. So she lets her know that she's basically there because God put it on her heart to be there. And everybody deserves, forgiveness and second chances. And Rebel says to her, like, I bet you've never needed forgiveness from the whole entire gospel community. So Tasha told her she actually was in that position before because she did a collaboration with Nicki Minaj, which is a rapper, and the name of the song actually is I'm Getting Ready. So that is true. And she says that she caught a whole lot of flack for it, that to the point it hurt her and it made her question herself. But in doing the song with Nicki, it also helped other people. So she told her she had to forgive herself for listening to the hypocrites, and she should have just trusted what she heard from God. So Tasha tells her that everybody is special in God's eyes, and you never know whose life you may touch by sharing your own story. And that's why she thinks that it'll be important that they have this collaboration. So we go over there to the church where we see Calvin. He's sitting alone, really depressed, holding the Bible, and he's joined by Deacon Dwayne. And I just swear nobody can see this man except Denita and Calvin. But it's like he never interacts with anybody else. So I question if he's actually real. I guess he is, but he just gives me guardian angel vibes. But anyway, he sits down with him and he basically says, I'm here to check on you. Like, do you realize that what you did in this church was wrong? And he lets him know that you cannot make amends for your mistakes by dying. You do it through living. And he tells him he needs to find a purpose, and that God would make crooked places straight if he just let him be God. So we go back over there to the studio, and Tasha and Rebel, they're in there jamming. They're sounding great, telling you what God has done. They were sounding much better than that, so don't judge me, but they were jamming. Jewel was talking to Caesar. We find out that the song will actually go on Tasha's album, and that'll probably help, build Rebel back up. And Jewel was basically telling Caesar, like, look, my parents kind of did me the same way, so don't go too hard on her, because it'll make it harder for her to make her way back. And Caesar, he appreciated the advice Jewel was trying to give him. So after the session was over, Rebel and Caesar were having a conversation. She told him that the song was nice and all, but it's really not going to help her because she has to pay her bills now, like they're piling up. And she might as well go back to stripping because she needs the funds. And Caesar was like, don't joke like that. And she was like, who said I was joking? Caesar just told her if she wants to make him happy, just put the work in and just know that it's going to take some time. And really, she don't have that kind of time, she said. And she felt like she wasn't being heard by Caesar, so she basically just stormed off. So then it looks like Rebel was trying to go to the hospital, but was deciding whether or not she wanted to go in or not. And then she was approached by Detective Parker, who wanted to ask her some questions about the shooting at the church. And she was like, well, maybe we can grab a bite to eat, I'll treat. And Rebel was like, well, all right, long as it is somewhere nice. Now, Chief Ray already told Detective Parker, well, basically he said, don't question the Jordans. I guess she gonna find anybody to talk to, so she gonna roll up on Rebel. But my thing is, Rebel wasn't even there, so what answers can she give? So we go back over there to the hospital, and Calvin comes running in because CJ texted him, and they were like, well, where you been at? And he said that he felt like nobody wanted him around, and they told him that that wasn't true. So then the elevator door opens, and we got my girl, Loretta Devine. She come running in, playing Darlene, which is Denita's mom. We got Lou Gossett Jr., that is Bishop Jeremiah, Denita's dad. And then we have messy behind Raggedy Sasha pushing him in the wheelchair. And I'm like, well, what is she doing there? And CJ wanted to know the same thing. And Darlene was like, well, we asked her to pick us up from the airport. I'm like, well, how is she even still on the payroll? Sasha goes and hugs Calvin all up and down in front of everybody. Like, excuse me, pardon me. And I'm like, Calvin, you need to be pushing her up off of you, like quick and in a hurry, like for real. So Darlene said she wanted to see her daughter, so the kids get ready to take her there. And Calvin thinks he's getting ready to go. And Bishop Jeremiah was like, hold up, wait a minute. I need to talk to you. And Sasha, she's still standing there. So I'm wondering, was she messing with the daddy too? Like, girl, go away. So Jeremiah decided that he was going to read Calvin for filth and told him, look, you SOB, if I was younger, I would really beat your behind. You better hope my daughter makes a full recovery, or you're going to be the next person pissing in the bag. Child, Calvin didn't want none of that smoke, so he basically just walked off. That's all he could do, holding his head down. So later we see Jeremiah and Darlene sitting with Denita praying as you hear someone singing out loud. So we go outside the hospital, and they're having this little prayer session going on with the supporters, and Sasha's belting her lungs out. They have media coverage there, and as she's singing, Caesar is watching her. So when she's finished, he tells her she has a beautiful voice, and she says that Lady Jordan has been begging her to record something. And I'm like, girl, a lie don't care who tell it. So he asks her about Denita, and she tells him that she's still in a coma, and asks him, does he want to go and see her? And he was excited, like, sure, if that's possible. And Sasha was like, well, let me just run it by her parents first. And Caesar was like, nah, never mind, I'm good. So he tells her that her parents don't like him, and he's getting ready to leave, and she introduces herself and says her name is Sasha, and he tells her that he looks forward to hearing her music one day, and he ends up walking off. So then the entire family was gathered in the little waiting room area, and Darlene basically told Essence that this was a family meeting, and it was an immediate family meeting. And Essence acted like she was getting ready to try to say that she was pregnant, and Taj kind of cut her off. And Darlene told her, look, I don't mean to offend you or whatever, but, we got to discuss some, business here, and you probably wouldn't care to hear it anyway. So Taj, talked to her, told her, just go home, blah, 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 and I'll fill you in later. And he went to try to go kiss Essence, and she turned her head like, I don't think so. Like, if this how you gonna treat me or let your family treat me, I'm out of here. And she ended up leaving. So Jeremiah and Darlene, they done came in there wreaking havoc. They done told Calvin he is no longer in charge. He's making absolutely no statements, and he is going on a sabbatical. He couldn't believe it. They told Taj he was going to run a record label, and Taj told him he got fired. And they was like, well, you could just come back. And they was like, no, CJ is handling it. She's well equipped to do that. And he got upset because he's like, why y'all talking about my mom as if she's already gone? And he ended up storming off. So after everybody ran off upset, Calvin decided he was going to step to Jeremiah and ask him, did he put the police chief Ray up to silencing Danny? And Jeremiah was like, as usual, I don't know what you're talking about. And do you take me for a fool? He told Calvin, the kingdom is bigger than you. And had the problem not resolved itself, he was perfectly willing to watch Calvin hang himself. And he told Calvin maybe he should have tried that. I said, oh my God. And now we clearly see where Denita gets it from, her mama and her daddy. We then get a scene where Rebel went back to Vivid to ask Dex for her job back, and he was like, well, what happened to your little gospel gig? And she said gospel just not paying any money, and she needs her bills paid. And, she was like, don't make me beg. And I guess he had his arms folded like, you better get to begging. So we go over there to the hospital and we see Malcolm and CJ sitting by Denita's bedside. And CJ is basically apologizing, telling her she's sorry, asking her mom to wake up because she needs her. But when the camera pans out, we see Sasha lurking in the background listening. And I'm like, why is Sasha there? So once CJ and Malcolm leaves, Sasha, she's over there at the nurse's desk station and she asks the nurse, can the person hear you when they're in a coma? And he says he's had patients that has happened to before. So she gives this evil look as she looking over there at Denita. Next thing we know, she walks over there to Denita's bedside. So she says, it's okay, Lady Jordan. Let go. Walk into the light. I'll take good care of Calvin. So child, all the machines start going haywire. They went to beeping all over the place. And the nurse told her she's going to have to step out so he can get her back right. So we go inside the chapel and Calvin is already there. We had a young guy sitting in there and CJ comes in. And the young guy, he gets up and he goes over to Calvin and he says, may I pray with you? So they pray. So we go over there with Caesar and he's sitting there watching Denita on his computer when his lawyer comes in. And she basically told him that the injunction that he filed earlier for Denita not fulfilling her promise, it's gone through. And he's like, oh no, like I don't want to do it right now. Like it's not a good time. He wants to know, can he kind of put that on hold? And she's telling him like, you're still in love with her. You're such a good guy. And she tells him he's a little too good sometimes. So we see Taj by his mom's bedside and he's praying and asking her to please stay. So Calvin goes back to the waiting room and he's attempting to try to talk to Darlene and Jeremiah. And Jeremiah's like, what do you want? And he's like, wait a minute, is that Denita's obituary? They're literally sitting there planning out her funeral arrangements and everything. Jeremiah was like, what, you afraid that your name is not mentioned? I'm like, these two right here are a piece of work. You hear me? They are off the chain. So, they're telling him like it's God's calling and you are not God. And Calvin is telling him they need to have faith. All of a sudden, Calvin sees Caesar and they look and see Caesar and they're like, what is he doing here? And Darlene getting up like, she trying to get security. And Calvin was basically like, I'll go take care of it. So Caesar, he's standing by Denita's bedside and Calvin, he comes in and says that, Darlene basically wants you to leave. Caesar, he's not surprised. So he gets ready to turn to leave. And Calvin was like, no, go ahead and just stay. He's tired of Darlene and Jeremiah West basically running his life. Like he's dealt with it long enough and I guess he is done. So Calvin told him to take as much time as he needed. And Caesar let him know, look, I just wanted you to know that a lawsuit was filed against Denita and Kingdom Records about the whole music rights thing. And it was done way prior to this incident happening. And he said that he had his attorney working on it and that they weren't going to push the issue until Denita was fully recovered. So we get a scene with Taj. I guess he's in the chapel playing the piano or whatever. And Rebel comes in and she's like, where's Essence? He tells her that he sent her home to get some rest. So she sits down next to him and told him that she did pray for him like he asked. And she thanks him for everything that he's done. And, they get to talking about the music. So she asked him, was that music he was playing new? And he said it was brand new. And apparently it was called Stay. So I don't know if that's something that he probably did for his mom or low key for Rebel. So they start singing it and they do their little duet together. And next thing you know, you see in the background, Essence pops up and she's watching them. And for me, it was given a scene from Zatima when Fatima went back to the hospital after Zach told her to leave and caught him there hugged up with Connie. I said, oh, Lord. So as Essence stood there watching them, I think it was in that moment she realized that that's where his heart is. And you could see the hurt in her face. And she just turns around and leaves without saying a word. So we go over there to Denita's bed and we see the young guy that was in the chapel with Calvin that was praying with him over her bedside. And he's kneeling by her praying. He takes his well-manicured hand, one of them, and place it on her stomach. He takes the other one and place it over her forehead. And all of a sudden, her eyes pop open and she grabs his his arm. And he, gently, removes her hand from his arm. And of course, everything is cloudy for her. She doesn't know if this is live or if it's Memorex. She says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm your son." I said, "Oh my God, oh my God." And he just walks off. I said, "Lord have mercy. Girl, who is the baby daddy? Is this Caesar's child?" We need answers. We need answers. And the episode actually ends there. So they are back. They are back. That is episode 1 of season 2. And it was packed with a whole lot of stuff. What did you guys think? What are your theories, thoughts? All of that. Drop down in the comments and let's talk about it. As always, you guys, thanks for all of your support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you on episode 2. Peace.